quarter. And we show them some diagrams and I'll tell them about the drills that they need to do. For example, this is what we show them some of the skills, some of the positions, some of the drills. Maybe in the next slide, just this, hitting the wall with the 2 steps from the back. So we tell them about the skills and the drills they need to do, and then we evaluate this from level 1 to level 6. This is what we do. This is what we do in all the academy branches. It's the same technical program everywhere. Also, it's the good thing that kids can, if they move or go somewhere, they can move from one of the academy branches to the other branch with a different coach, but in the same level, they will do the same things, the same drills, and the same technical program is going with them throughout the time at the specific level. This is just a sample of our technical program, and I know that some of the other clubs already have maybe similar, maybe a bit less detailed, but we're starting now to have this culture of having a structured program for the juniors training, not just one-on-one training or the private lessons or private sessions training for the juniors, which is also a very big edge for our junior development. That's about it for what I needed to do. I usually prefer to talk less and then maybe to listen more. So I thought I got now only half the time for my presentation, and the other half is all for your questions. Thank you very much. And I'm ready to take your questions. Yes?
I have a question, Omar. All the clubs that you mentioned at Cairo and Alexandria, is there plans or will anything open up in other cities like Luxor or Aswan?
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
Because it's an expensive. The facilities and the lands are very expensive. But already, for example, if I talk about my academy, I opened the branch in Hurghada last year. And in another city called Dumyat, it's 2 hours from Alexandria. We're starting to move away, but not in the south of Egypt, but in the north. We're starting to have more branches other way, but it's still Cairo and Alexandria. They have like 90–95% of the squash population. It's moving slowly. I heard a couple of weeks ago that the Ministry of Sports, they're planning to have squash courts all over Egypt, but you hear this all the time. I'm not sure if it's going to happen or not. But on the private sector, we're starting. As I said, the Wadi Degla clubs are expanding. I'm expanding. The Black Ball, we're talking about opening other branches. We're doing our best, and I always say, like, the main challenge for us now is the facilities, and it's actually the opposite than what's happening abroad. Abroad, there are the facilities, and they're looking for the players. We have much more players than the facilities. I have like a waiting list in my academy in all branches. I'm still looking for more courts, looking to build more courts, looking to open more branches, always looking to rent courts anywhere when they're available. My main challenge, even if I talk about myself as an investor in squash, my main challenge is finding the facilities, not finding the players. The players are there and they're waiting for the announcement on the social media that we're opening a new branch somewhere and to enroll. But you have the demand, and you just need to supply that demand. Yes.
I've got a couple of questions. I'll start with one. Your junior tournaments with 1,000 players, over how many days are they played?
5 or 6 days. 5 at least. Small ones are 5 days. bigger ones are 6 days.
And is it a straight knockout if you lose?
Yes, yes. We don't, if there was an idea a couple of years ago, maybe last year, about doing a plate event, but still they tried it once. It's huge. It's so many matches, and it gets very complicated with those numbers. Because if you're like first round, you have 264 players, 128 and 128 if you're going to start, and it's a total different, you need to make another tournament for the plate in another time. But so far, it's knockout.
Yeah, so some of the players playing the first rounds, they would be playing during the week when they normally would have school, I suppose.
Yes.
Is that a challenge if they play 10, 12, 15 tournaments a year? Or are schools, would they accept it?
It's very challenging, and it's starting to be very challenging actually. It's one of the arguments I always have with the Egyptian Federation and with the clubs, to try to accommodate the education with the competition. Usually the tournaments, they start on the weekend, so the first couple of days are school holidays. You get more than half the players knocked out on the weekend, but you only have the better part, or the more competitive players, playing on the weekdays, maybe starting last 16, usually last 16 or quarterfinals, or are the ones who are playing midweek, and they miss school. And this is, I see it as a problem. So far, the solution that to have more courts, for example, because they now with the tournaments are played with 1,000 players, for example, even if you have 16 courts, still the number of players is huge. Maybe if you have more courts or more venues at the same time, you can only play in the afternoon and don't play during the school days. But it's very challenging, and it's starting to be challenging for the kids. The school, most of the schools that I know, my kids' school as well, most of the schools now, they understand the importance of the sport, especially squash. When they go to the school, we do like official letters from the clubs to send to the school that the kid has the so-and-so tournament at those dates, so please accept his absence for this couple of days because he's playing the tournament. All the clubs now, they have like a format with the name of the tournament and the date, and send to the kids' school to tell them that they have a squash tournament, so to not to count their absent days. Most of the schools, they understand and they try to help the kids. Some of them, they don't. But still, it is one of the big challenges now with the many tournaments, and with the season is filled also with the leagues as well. Not only the tournament, the league matches. Because also in the league matches, the players are obligated to play as well. Like in the individual tournaments, sometimes like my kids, they have exams or something important, and so I decide to skip the tournament and they go to school. But in the league, when they have also a contract with the club, they have an obligation towards the club to play the league matches. But at least they need to go to the league matches as well. It is a big challenge.
When is the league played? During the week or?
Usually in weekend, but sometimes you need, for example, 3 days. So you get 2 days in the weekend and 1 school day. It is very, very big actually. It's too big that it's becoming a problem to accommodate the number of players and the number of matches. So the Egyptian Junior League this year has 14 teams. If you have one day playing the match, you have 7 matches between the 14 teams. 7 matches times 50 at least players. It's huge amount of matches. But it's still big. But it's a bigger problem with the league because the players have to play the matches.
My question is, I worked with a lot of people learning squash, and they want to be interested in squash. So I start with them like with basic things, and they just give up. They feel like they're bored. So what's the secret sauce in Egypt? How come everybody's like engaged and they're like coming back to learn, and they don't give up, they don't feel bored quickly?
Many things, but the first thing that they see world champions. They see the way they see that they're going somewhere. For example, it doesn't. This happens in Egypt maybe with the tennis. We don't like our top tennis player is struggling to reach the top 200. This is the best ever Egyptian tennis player. When you get the young tennis players playing, they fight because they don't see where they're going. In squash, they already, in each club, you have at least one world champion training and competing there and training together. But they see the way, they see the tournament on TV. They see that if they did the effort, if they did the discipline and did the effort, there's a way there. And as I said, also the parents are always passionate and always pushing the kids, because they tell them you want to be like Noor, you want to be like Ranim, you want to be like Rami, you want to be like Shabana. But a very big part of it is seeing the role models and seeing that already the Egyptians are world champions in squash. But if you're good in squash in Egypt, you're going to become a world champion. For example, I had one of the parents one day told me, his son was a good player in Egypt, not the best player, but was one of the good players. And he told me that I need to take him abroad to play tournaments abroad, because I need to know what's his international standard or international ranking. I told him what's his junior ranking now in Egypt. He told me he's number 16. I told him, okay, he's number 16 in the world. I don't have to travel. Because the local competition is so strong that really, if you don't have to think, these days, the parents are not really thinking about the international competition. They're thinking about the local competition, because they know if you reach the top in Egypt, you already reached the top internationally without thinking about it. But if you are number 1 in Egypt under 15, you're going to be top seed in the British Open under 15, even if they don't know you. If you're going to be top seed in the US Open, even if the US federation, they don't know you. You say that this is the number 1 Egyptian under 15, he's going to be top seed in the tournament, and he's probably going to win it. But people are really thinking about the local competition more, because they know that this will lead to the international win or international achievement.
Just going back to the education programs, have you ever think of doing some homeschooling? Like homeschool or?
It's a great idea. It is not still popular in Egypt. I have 2 players doing homeschooling now. Only 2 out of 1,000 players in the academy. It is not popular in Egypt in general. We don't have the homeschooling programs. The ones that are doing homeschooling now, they're doing online programs with schools in the US or in England. And they're getting their certificates from there. But then now they're struggling also to be accredited from the Egyptian schools. Their only way, if they graduate from the homeschooling, they need to go to universities abroad. They can't go and apply for Egyptian universities, for example, with their degree. I have one of those boys doing homeschooling and registered in one of the Egyptian schools at the same time. And he goes and does the exams here and there. It's one of the very good ideas, but we need first to have the homeschooling programs more need. But it might be a very good solution as well, because the kids, they need to arrange their times in a better way.
Had the former juniors trained differently for different individual?
No. The current Egyptian Federation rules, they allow the foreign players to play in the men and the women, like the open tournaments. They don't allow them to play in the junior, local junior events, because they might affect the local rankings. Which like if a good international junior played and he beat one of the Egyptian junior, it kind of complicates a bit the local rankings. This is the arguments for not allowing the foreigners to play in the junior league. Because we had actually many We have many players coming for camps and training camps in Egypt, and they always ask to play. They want to play and participate in the junior tour, which is a huge asset if it's allowed. It's very beneficial for them to play. But so far it is not allowed, and also in the league, same thing. It's only allowed in the men and the women categories.
Can I ask, with the level of junior players, how is your adult squash? Because is there any courts for adults to play, or?
Yes, there is, but actually it's minimum. I see it as the opposite of what's happening, for example, in Europe. We have 95% of the squash population is juniors. The 5% are the amateur players, or maybe the masters. We have tournament for masters, for more amateur players and masters. I like the social squash, which is very popular in Europe, especially in Europe and maybe in the States a little bit. I say it's a maximum of 5% of the courts. For example, if I take also my academy as an example, we have the courts full with juniors from just after school, from like 3 p.m., just the time after school, to at least 10 p.m. Till the end of the day. We have the seniors, maybe they have 1 or 2 hours late in the evening if they want to come and play. But also the numbers are not that big. But squash in Egypt, it's not considered as a social sport. Actually, it's which I think it's one of the bad things. I'm trying to promote the social part of the game, which is very important, another important aspect of the game. But I see it as 95% competitive juniors and 5% social amateurs, or maybe less than 5% even. The numbers are much less. Very few. Maybe you get like 10, 15 players, amateurs in each club versus 1,000 kids.
And is that because people lose interest in the sport, or they just can't get on the court?
Maybe both. Some of the clubs the courts are difficult, but the other, I think, part of it is the culture. Still, the sports culture in Egypt, not only in squash, it's competitive. Like, people think about it, we want to play sports to win. The idea and the culture of playing sports to be healthy, it's a very small percentage, and it's maybe more to the top social class. They usually go to the gyms. Now they're starting also the trend of playing CrossFit and playing some other sports. But the idea of playing sports just for fun, playing sports socially, playing sports just to be healthy, this culture is in Egypt. It's not like in Europe or in the States. The real culture between the middle class, which is the big number, is the sports is something to compete in. We're playing sports to compete. But this is another reason for it. It's not only in squash. It's in all other sports.
I think we need to import some of the juniors in Saudi Arabia from Egypt.
Yeah,
so
we have enough to send. We're already we're sending many to the States now. We have it, and I think it's going to be a problem later in the year. We have many juniors going to the States to the schools, and it's actually, maybe I didn't mention this in the presentation. Just in the last maybe couple of years, we started to have this one extra motive to play squash now is getting scholarships in schools in the States. We have many kids, including my son. My own son he doesn't train with me, he's in the States now. He's in a boarding school in the States, because it's starting to open opportunities, huge educational opportunities. You see, Ali Farag is a Harvard graduate, and he went to Harvard after winning the British Juniors under-19. He was picked to go to Harvard. And we have 4 Egyptians in Harvard this year, 4 Egyptian freshmen, 4 world junior, Marwan Tariq, Mu'taz, Amina Yasser, and Saad Ihab, 4 top junior Egyptians. They are the only Egyptians in Harvard, and they are there only because they're good students for sure. They will not be allowed to Harvard without being good students. But they're good students, but they're only there because they're world champions in squash. So we started to have many Egyptians in the schools in the United States, in high schools, not only universities. So kids now and parents are starting to think about playing also squash, not to be a world champion, but playing squash to be good enough to have a scholarship or good enough to have a good educational opportunity in top universities. Mohammed Shourbagi and Marwan Shourbagi, where we have had their university education in England. Many examples in the States and in England now.
You speak about the levels you have for the different advanced your players had. How much time does it take in each level? Like just like an example.
Usually from 6 months to a year. Usually. It doesn't happen from the first quarter. We evaluate them every quarter. But usually the program is designed, it's 6 levels. It is designed to reach from the beginner to the competitive level in like 5 years. But if they start at the age, they start very young. We have players 5 years old. We have 4.5 and 5 years old starting. So if you start when you're 5 or 6, you need to reach the competitive level when you're like 11, around 10 or 11. But it is designed to be finished in an average of like 5 years to reach. So it's usually 6 months to 1 year, depending on the discipline, depending on some of the kids. They move faster, they're very talented. But usually 6 months to 1 year in each level.
Related to that question, I'm just curious. Let's say for an under 11, as you mentioned, 5 to 6 years old, I'm just curious on their weekly training. So how many hours do they train more or less, let's say for level 1? The reason I'm asking is that because we train a lot of juniors, when they spend 1-2 hours a week, or even 3 hours a week, for them that's already too much in one sport. So I'm just curious in Egypt, as you said, by 11 they should be world level. How many hours do they train a week? And related to that as well,
Yes.
Isn't that asking too much for a 7-6 years old to train that much in a week?
First, they said the levels are very gradual. Level 1, the beginner, they play level 1 and level 2, they play twice a week. But this is like the beginners. And they usually play other sports at this time. Starting level 3, they have 3 times a week, and we start to introduce fitness, for example. But still, 3 times a week, the session is like 45 minutes. You can say it's like 3 to 4 hours a week. This is around 7-8 years old. Still, they play other sports at this time. Level 4, they started to have 4 squash sessions a week and a couple of fitness sessions. It moves to like also 5-6 hours a week. It's not that much until this level. When they reach level 5 and competitions, usually they don't have time to play other sports. Usually they start training 6 days a week when they are like 10 years old. They're gonna start playing 5 or 6 days a week according to their schedules. 1 to 1.5 hours a day. If they have squash and fitness, it can reach 2 hours in some of the days. The other days, 1 hour. But maybe you get 10 hours per week for average. Still not a lot, but when they reach that level with the school, especially in the winter, that's it for their schedule. Maybe in the summer they have more time, but when they reach the competitive level at about 10 or 11 years old, they don't have time to do anything else other than school and the squash. But it's very gradual, and as I said also, they are pushed. The parents, they understand that squash is a priority as well, same as the education. Some of the parents, they take the decision to skip important days in school to play tournaments. It's a decision made by the parents, not only by the little kid nagging on his mother to say, no, I don't want to go to school, and I'm going to go and play squash. Sometimes the parents are very passionate, and they have the priority for the kids to play squash and to be a champion in squash. They take the decision themselves to tell their kids, oh, okay, we're going to skip 1 week, one day a week from school to play squash. But the technical levels and the program is made to accommodate both. But when they reach the competitive level, it's very hard to play other sports. But in the first 2-3 years, when they're 6, 7, 8, maybe until 9 years old, they still have time to do other things.
You have a very large young population of players playing or specializing in the sport from an early age. I'm guessing that there will be a large dropout rate of these youngsters as well when they don't reach the requisite levels. Can you tell me what would happen to these kids, or what really happens? Do they move into another sport? Like in China, for example, they have a huge population playing badminton.
Yeah.
And they cannot get into the elite groups. So what happens is these people who fall out join, other sports.
It's 100% right. We have, as I said, like the under 11 and under 13 tournaments. You get 264 draws. The under 15, under 17, you get 128 and sometimes 64 draws. Under 19, sometimes you get 32 draws. It's like every couple of years, you can say it's like half the population is dying every couple of years, every age group. When you're moving up, it's a pyramid. It's a pyramid with the tip is the professional level and the base is the under 11. And the dropout actually is normally half the numbers every age group. Sometimes they move to other sports, but it's usually too late to compete in other sports. Some of them they just start to play soccer or just go to the gym or play CrossFit, as I said. Some of them they go back to the game later as trainers and coaches. So when I'm recruiting coaches and trainers, I usually now, because it's a big challenge now, because the number of players and the courts are expanding very fast, we don't have enough experienced coaches or experienced trainers to work with all these juniors. But I personally start thinking about the players who are good, not very good, not the top players in juniors, but the ones who are good in juniors and they stopped competing. For example, when they are like 16 or 17. 3-4 years later, I already have 3 or 4 trainers in my academy who used to play as players in my academy. And then they stopped for educational reasons or whatever and went to school and went away from squash. And then now they're back to work in the academy. So they have a very good base, they have a good technique, they know about the game. And when we teach them what to do on court, they become actually, some of them are very, very good trainers now. But some of them, they go back to the game as trainers. But usually we lose half the numbers when they go up. And actually, it's a problem and it's a shame. But also I see we don't have place to keep all this number going for long. It's natural because the competition is so hard. But if you're not making if you're not in the top 30, top 40 in the rankings, it becomes very hard by time. Same as like in PSA. If you're playing PSA for like 3-4 years and you still didn't hit the top 100 or top 150, you're gonna stop. But it's the same. Big numbers stopping. Some of them go back to coaching. Some of them play other sports.
Yeah. You said that you move your players through the levels, and they would move from one coach or trainer to the other trainer. Do you have a pathway for the trainers also to move on, or would one trainer just do the little kids all the time?
Very smart question. because it's a real challenge. Because the trainers, they want to move forward. They want to move. The trainers, they're like a level 1 trainer. He wants to move to the top level. The level 4 trainer, he wants to move to train the team. And sometimes he's good enough. I personally have this conflict because it's a very big advantage to keep the trainer in the same level because he knows what to do exactly in this level. He's very experienced to train these specific skills. But if I'm talking about like the technical part or even the business part, my first choice will be to keep the trainer in the same level because he does it. It's a repetitive thing for him and he does it very well. So why move him and get someone else new to do the level? But we get sometimes some of the trainers demotivate. But they feel they're good enough to train better players. And they feel that we want to go to the team. We want to train more players. We want to do more. But it's a balance. But I move trainers as well, but not often, not on a regular basis. I usually do it when I have a demand. For example, I have like a few months ago, I had like 15, 20 players. I see that like good enough and ready to move to the team level and the competitive level. And I don't have enough trainers there. But I check my trainers who are working in the other level and see who's good enough to move him. But when I have a demand, I pick the best one to move. But I don't have like a structure that for example, every year or something that the trainer keeps moving. They're usually stuck in the same level for a long time unless we need them in the higher levels.
Because I know that in Austrian football, the junior coaches, they move with the teams.
With the teams, yeah.
So that's a different philosophy.
Yes. No, where usually the players are the one who moves. The coaches, maybe he moves once every 2 years, for example, he can move.
And only one level, maybe.
Maybe 1 or 2. And usually, with most of the trainers, because I pick the trainer to the suitable level. But usually if he's training level 1 and 2, it's almost impossible that he can train the team. But maybe he can move to level 3 after a few years of experience. But maybe also the trainer of level 4 or 5 can move to the team. Usually 1 or 2 levels up. Yes. Yeah.
Does that mean that you have a big supply of coaches, people who are looking for jobs, or I guess a lot of other countries in the world don't have so many coaches? Do you have a big pool to choose from?
No, it is a challenge. As I said, it's a big challenge. We have a big supply, but not the very good ones, not the good ones. There are many, also with squash getting very popular now. Many people, they want to work in squash, but they're not good enough technically. But it is a challenge to find good trainers now. And that's why actually I always check and I always get my old books to get the former players. This is the best solution now, is get the former players, all the good juniors who stopped playing. Those are my best choices now. Because we're like the experienced ones, they're done. They're already full, and they actually some of the really good trainers, they work in many clubs at the same time. They work 7 days a week. Sometimes in holidays they work, for example, 5-6 hours in one club, and they go